On va reprendre. Voilà. Alors, on va reprendre. Merci de regagner vos places. On va essayer de se tenir au timing. Voilà. Pour avoir le temps de tous se retrouver autour du cocktail ce soir. Voilà. Moment convivial. Moment. Allez, on trouve sa place. Merci Bernard Roman. Ça se voit, on voit tout de suite la fermeté. Ah. Oh, c'était sage le SJ quand même. Allez, en attendant que tout le monde s'asseye, je vais démarrer. Nous voilà réunis pour notre troisième et dernière session de la journée. Nous allons parler cette fois des modalités d'ouverture pour les services conventionnés. Donc pour nous en France, le TER, merci, et les intercités. Donc on n'est plus, vous l'aurez compris, dans l'open access, mais non, dans le système de franchise. Pour en parler, j'appelle mes invités Robert Catterall, Friedman Brockmeyer, Henry Merck et Thierry Mallet. Merci de les encourager. Ils viennent s'asseoir, voilà. Et on va démarrer effectivement avec vous, Robert Catterall. J'espère que je prononce bien. Pas évident. Donc on va voir, vous l'aurez deviné, ce qui se passe du côté du Royaume-Uni. Vous êtes directeur adjoint de la stratégie commerciale de franchisage au département des transports du Royaume-Uni. L'exploitation du système de chemin de fer britannique est quasiment, donc on l'a vu, entièrement privatisée, divisée en une quinzaine de franchises, dont la gestion est attribuée par le ministère des Transports après appel d'offres à des entreprises privées, y compris bien sûr des entreprises non britanniques. Robert, on vous écoute, c'est à vous.
Thank you very much. That sounds much better spoken in French, my job title, than in English. So thank you for that. And thank you very much for inviting me here today to talk about the Great British experience of franchising. And I'm, just to be clear, I am from the UK Department for Transport. Oh, apologies, I'll move closer. So I am from the UK Department for Transport, but we have responsibility for just the Great British part of rail. But we've also devolved the system of franchising in Scotland as well, but it's very similar to the Great British to the England and Wales model. But I'll be drawing on most of my examples from England and Wales today. So there are three things I'm going to talk to you about. What has Great British franchising delivered? What have we learned over the last 20 years and more of doing franchising? And I won't go through all of that, but just a few key lessons. And then when next for franchising in the UK. But before I do that, I'll give you a little bit of background. I'll probably try and whiz through this, given you've already heard a bit about the British system. But just to explain where franchising fits in. And this is a fairly simple diagram of a complex system, but there are three key relationships I want to pull out. The first is the transport, the Department for Transport as the franchising authority. It runs it runs competitions for 15 franchises and manages contracts for those 15 train operating companies. And that's not always been the Department for Transport over those 20 years. There's been independent bodies who have done that role, but it's been an advantageous move in the last 10 or so years to do that, so the department can secure the social outcomes that it needs to from its franchise operators as one of the big funders of the railway. The second relationship I wanted to pull out here was, if I can see if I get the light to work, is this relationship between the train operating companies and Network Rail. As I'm sure you all know, we have a vertically separated industry in the UK, in Great Britain. And that has the advantage that you have Network Rail, our infrastructure manager, focused on the timely and efficient delivery of infrastructure. And then you have our train operating companies who are there to deliver an excellent passenger experience. And then the third relationship is this relationship between train operating companies and rolling stock companies. So our train operating companies don't own the rolling stock. they lease it from rolling stock companies. And that separation has enabled a huge amount of private investment in rolling stock in the UK system. So diving a bit deeper into franchising, we have 15 franchises, 15 train operating companies of varying size and characteristics. We have the Thameslink Southern and Great Northern franchise, which is our largest franchise with around £1.4 billion of revenue per year. It serves London and South East commuter markets, to the very small Wales and Border franchise with just over £100 million of revenue a year, which covers a mix of markets, but is largely a regional train operating company. So all of these franchises serve a range of different markets and in that way, we have very different contractual arrangements for each of them. But we have been moving towards a fairly standard model in the last few years of 7 to 10 year franchise lengths with the option of a 1 year extension. And most franchise operators, although not all, are on revenue risk, some from all of the revenue to some share revenue transfer between the department and the operator. So that's the background. So what has franchising delivered for Great Britain is the next bit. So I think it's hard to say exactly what franchising has done in isolation, because franchising is part of an overall success story of the whole of the rail industry since privatisation in the early 1990s. And what you've seen as part of that, as core part of that system, journeys have more than doubled, quite far out in front of most of our European competitors. We have one of the safest railways in Europe. Reliability has improved. Customer satisfaction is generally at high levels. And looking more specifically at franchising itself, we've seen the increase in the returns to taxpayers. So starting out from subsidy at privatisation to our franchise operators paying us back a premium in totality. So that masks some obviously paying us big subsidies, some paying us big premiums, like the East Coast operator, the Virgin Trains, which Dan Brown described earlier. And franchising has delivered lots of innovations. The competitions themselves have that fierce injection of competition for the market has led to a lot of innovations, new journey opportunities, new technologies, new ticketing arrangements. Whilst the beauty of franchising is that government can specify its requirements as well and get those socially important requirements in place. So just to make a bit more of a reality of this, I'll just give you a bit of a case study to bring this to life. So in last year, we finished the East Anglia competition, where we awarded which is, for those who don't know, is this region here. So trains travelling from London up to Norwich and other parts of that region. And that was the climax of a long process that started 2 years. And even before we started the franchise competition, there was detailed analysis done to understand what our requirements are for that franchise, which is aided by a public consultation to work out what we want to buy. And then we have a very competitive franchising process that led with 3 bidders that ultimately has led to several innovations, and it has a rigorous evaluation connected to it as well. And leading to the award to Abellio East Anglia, who are branded as Greater Anglia. And so some of the key benefits we found there is significant journey time savings. So we now have these 4 services from London to Norwich that are completed in 90 minutes, which is, I think, over a 10-minute saving. Free Wi-Fi, over 1.4 billion investment in new rolling stock, and a host of new ticketing initiatives, so including new offers for part-time users and those that just don't travel every day. So I'm going to draw now on what the kind of key lessons are from the Great British model. And we've had over 20 years of franchising, so I'm not going to go through all of that, but I will draw out some of the 3 key lessons today. And the first of my lessons is that the franchising process needs to be underpinned by a really robust procurement. We had, in 2012, a pretty challenging time where Virgin Trains successfully challenged the award of the West Coast franchise to First Group, and that put a significant political strain on our politicians, who had to explain in Parliament why that had gone wrong and why we had failed in the procurement process, and led to two big reviews that really have shaped the fundamentals of how we do franchising going forward. So if you want to learn about how we do British franchising in modern times, the Brown Review is a very good starting point. It's a very easy document to read. The Laidlaw Review kind of tells you why it all went wrong before that. I'd encourage you to do that. And what that's led to for the department is a real realisation that we need to do things right. We need a really rigorous process, which we've now done. It's delivered over six successful competitions since 2013. And that process, it also requires making sure we have the right level of resource and expertise to carry out those really detailed, multi-billion-pound contracts, procurements. So my second lesson comes in two parts, really. And we need to ensure that we have a commercially sustainable franchising market. And there's two elements to that. There's one, ensuring we have enough bidders for our franchise competitions, but there's also ensuring that once we've selected a bidder, that the contract is sustainable for the duration of that. So starting with ensuring we have enough interest, we've seen in recent times a fair decline potentially in the number of bidders. And this is a bit of an old chart, really, actually, I'm afraid. We actually had two bidders for the West Midlands because one bidder pulled out. So the last two franchise competitions, the West Midlands one is will be completed fairly soon. We've only had two bidders, and to really see the benefits of competition for the market, you need an active and intense competition with a number of bidders. I think we're improving that situation. We just announced last week that we have 4 bidders for the Southeastern franchise competition that we will be starting this year, and 3 bidders for the West Coast Partnership franchise competition. And I think that's come around because we are actively trying to look at how we make franchising attractive for the market. So we're always looking at how to reduce the big costs for our process. These processes are multi-million pound processes to bid for, so it costs every bidder several millions of pounds. And our process has got more and more rigorous over time, so we need to keep checking that we are not asking for unnecessary requirements, and we've done many things like review our franchise agreement document and recently to try and reduce the length of that and make it more understandable. We also actively engage with our market, so we go out there and try and win people from across the world to come and bid for our franchise competitions. So we have a team in DFT doing that, and it's I would say no surprise that we've been able to get we've been able to get Train Italia, MTR, Mitsui, all in recent months come and be franchise operators in the UK. The other big lesson is this solution is being clear about what we're doing. So for many years, it was a bit of a complaint that DFT wasn't really clear about when it was going to let its next franchise competitions. So we have this clear franchise schedule that sets out all of our 15 competitions and when they will happen, and we've staggered them so there's only 2 or 3 a year. And that's really had some very positive feedback. So the second part of ensuring we have a commercially sustainable franchise market is to ensure that the franchise contracts themselves are sustainable, and these intense competitions that we have between our franchise bidders don't lead to contracts that just aren't deliverable in life and that they can't deliver on those commitments. And that really comes down to the fine detail of the commercial propositions and the procurement process that we design before the competition to ensure that we put some checks and balances to try and ensure that they are deliverable. And really, there are 3 key elements in my mind for how you can check that. Firstly, it's really important to have the UK government thinks it's important that train operators have revenue risk incentives, so that they have incentives to grow the market. But it's about transferring the appropriate amount of risk and not exposing them to risks that are outside of their control as much so far as possible, so that when the smallest problem happens, they would fall over. We also subject them to rigorous evaluation. I can't really stress how much this is a very months of detailed work with teams of 40 plus evaluators and technical experts who look at the detailed submissions and models, and we ensure that where we penalise where we have unrealistic elements of the bid, providing that disincentive, but also the bids themselves, if they are ambitious, they have to provide us more capital to back that bid. So they have to put skin in the game, as an English phrase, to back their bids. My final lesson is about about competition and getting sure you have the right level of competition. So I think most of us agree probably here that competition is a good thing, but you can have too much of a good thing sometimes. And there have been points where competition has undermined the sustainability of the market. So it's kind of a little bit of a mirror view to what Dan said, but we're quite, they are closely aligned in between the regulator and the franchising authority, I think. So the real problem is that we have this quite intense competition for a franchise proposition. They are thinly capitalised entities that have put ambitious bids in, and then one day an open access operator can come along and completely undermine that franchise proposition, which they didn't know about when they bid, and they made the big commitments to the UK government about how much money they would pay to the department. So that is a big risk, but we should be supportive of open access where it serves places that franchise operators don't serve. We have a very successful open access operator who serves Hull, a medium-sized city in the north of England, about 250,000 people. It has a direct service from an open access operator from London to Hull that wouldn't be served by a franchise operator. So there are really important solutions here. Where necessary, the department needs to put protections in for our franchise operators, and we have done that in the past. We share some of that risk that the ORR grants an open access operator the rights to an open access operator that would undermine the commercial viability of the franchise. But it's really important what the process that Daniel Brown outlined earlier, that there's a really rigorous assessment of the track access applications, that they do overall have a positive business case compared to the franchise operators, and they don't severely negatively impact on both the franchise operators' sustainability, but also the long term, that money will be transferred back to the UK government. So it's ensuring that taxpayers there's a sustainable amount of funding for taxpayers as well. But also, and Daniel also mentioned this, open access needs to pay a fair share of access charges where they currently don't, and we're working very closely, as Dan mentioned, to get that level playing field. So finally, I'm just going to touch on where next we will be going with franchising. And firstly, to say we're very similar to you and very early days of a new parliament, it's only 3 weeks in, so it's hard to say where where our ministers will want to take franchising in the next 5 years or so. But it's likely that I think we have the same Transport Secretary in the UK, that we'll be carrying on with some of the priorities of the past. And we have, in the next 5 years, we do have 10 out of our 15 franchises that are subject to a competition. So my job is to look at how we look at the overall portfolio of those franchises and look at how we improve those over time. So we're going to continually look to refine and improve our franchising model, but also adapt it to new circumstances. So you may be aware of the West Coast Partnership franchise that we're currently in the process of designing, and will be the ITT will be published later this year for that competition. Well, that is it's a very radically different proposition than we've done before. It is not just a franchise competition for the rights to operate on the West Coast main line between London, Manchester and Glasgow, but also we are procuring a partner that will help us design the service proposition for the new high-speed rail network that the UK is currently building. So then there are the two other key priorities of our ministers. So I've talked about really the big benefits of vertical separation, but it is really important, and it's one of the ministers' top priorities in the UK, is how we join up track and train more effectively. And that is increasingly important where you have a very utilised network. We have increasingly very little capacity on our network. We need to ensure that there is close working between our infrastructure manager and our train operating companies. And so we're looking at ways we can integrate joint operational teams with shared financial and regulatory incentives to really improve the joint coordination. And also how we can use franchising to pave the way for the introduction of new technologies, where you have both inputs required from the train operating company to deliver train digital signalling, but also from the infrastructure manager. You need them to work together, so we need to ensure that our franchise competitions allow for that. And then, of course, we are looking to deliver excellent passenger service, and we have a number of initiatives in the UK at the moment to roll out the option that every passenger will have the option of a smart ticket by 2018. We're looking at new service quality and performance regimes where there'll be better data and sharper incentives to drive better service quality and performance. And then finally, looking to roll out new passenger compensation arrangements that are more generous than our existing ones. So thank you. That's all I wanted to say. I think we're leaving questions to a bit later on.
Thank you. Merci beaucoup. Merci. Please have a seat. Donc après les appels d'offres en Grande-Bretagne, on va à présent passer effectivement à l'Allemagne avec Friedemann Brockmeyer. Vous êtes consultant pour CVT Management. L'Allemagne où, donc on l'a vu, la décentralisation du ferroviaire régional de voyageurs a favorisé l'implantation de nombreux opérateurs alternatifs. Et ce sont, on l'a déjà dit, les landers qui sont chargés en particulier d'attribuer l'exploitation des lignes ferroviaires aux opérateurs. Et ils le font de plus en plus souvent sous la forme d'appels d'offres. Et c'est ce que l'on va voir avec vous.
Merci. Thank you for your kind introduction. Good afternoon. As so many before, I have to apologize to speak to you in English. The reason is very simple. My French is in a very bad condition. And I want to give you today a speech about the experiences we have made in Germany, and I want to focus mainly on the critical issues that came up in Germany, and I want to derive some learnings which might at least be partly transferable to the situation in France we have now in the railway sector. But before we starting to talk about Germany, let's have a short look into the landscape of liberalizing railway markets in the European Union or in Europe. Despite this common legislation, the scope of tendering in Europe is very different. In each country, we can observe different models. It's the same in the whole railway industry. It's the same with technology. It's the same with the European train control system. You have the idea of a common European system, but in the end, we have always national specifications of European solutions. It means that European countries have chosen very different approaches. They have starting at different times, and they're tendering railway services with a very different level of intensity. In Germany, 20 years ago, we have chosen to conduct a very comprehensive reform of the whole railway industry, which was organized as a state-owned authority, the Deutsche Bundesbahn, and the government has decided to handing over the responsibility for regional railway services to the so-called Länder, which are the 16 federal states. Other countries, for example, like we have already the UK, have opted for this full liberalization model that means, in the end, a horizontal and vertical separation of the whole industry, Other countries like the Netherlands or like Denmark have opted for, we call it the core network, where we have an incumbent network operator which operates a very dense and intersected network in the core of the country, and the non-commercial fringes are tendered out. Like Germany, France is now moving forward and starting this regionalization process, and that should be an opportunity to talk about concepts and lessons learned from Germany and to start a comparison, and will be hopefully beneficial for all of us. Let's go one step ahead. Unfortunately, we have learned already that competition and liberalization in Germany has not led to any significant competition in long-distance services. They are still dominated by Deutsche Bahn, and now we have some intramodal competition from the long-distance coaches, with some few exceptions. In regional services, results of competition are overall positive. Formerly, abundant services have been revitalized. Many operators running on the German networks, costs have decreased, quality has improved, the performance is better as before, but there's also a downside, and this downside is linked to the federal structure of Germany. Now we have 16 states, but we have 27 independent public transport authorities, which are responsible to tender and to award contracts. Right now, while we are sitting here in Paris and discussing about the future of the French railway industry in Stuttgart, the capital of Baden-Württemberg, this is the industrial heartland of Germany in the southwest, colleagues of mine and the government of Baden-Württemberg and the local heads of the local transport companies, the local rail transport companies, are sitting together and sign a new contract to establish a new company which is responsible for all sales and marketing activities in the country of Baden-Württemberg. We call the situation, or some of my colleagues call the situation, as a fallback to the time or the era of Länderbahnen. This was a period before 1918, before World War I, where all railways were separated and we had no national railway system in Germany. As a consequence of these regional services, we have a situation where we have no vertical separation of the railway industry, for example, like in the UK or in Netherlands or in Denmark, but we have a horizontal separation of the railway industry for some parts of the value chain of the railway industry. Although 11 regions in France are significantly less than the 27 PTAs in Germany, it might be still an opportunity to look in the challenges and solutions that come with such a structure from Germany. We all be aware that the ambitions are very high, and as a result, the stakeholders, this means in our industry, politicians, wish to see very positive trends and developments like a model shift, a higher model shift in favor of rail, like more ridership, well-utilized trains, better services, better product, and all these benefits they want to deliver by lower costs, so in the end, better value for money. From our perspective, or from my perspective, and as a consultant who has served his whole professional life in the railway industry, that sounds strange, but it's true, competition is not per se warranting the achievement of these goals, but it is a supporting element if it works effectively and efficiently. So that I would like to focus on some key success factors that help to establish a well-functioning competitive market where in the end a sufficient level of competition and the involvement of capable operators will decide about the success of tendering efforts. In order to make this work, we believe it is necessary to take a different view at the tendering setup from an operator's perspective, because in the end it will be the operator who has to decide to bid or not to bid. Experience from the German market has shown that this is a fundamental requirement, as in some cases the number of bids has decreased dramatically, being to small numbers of only 1 to 3 bids per tender. That means a market is not feasible. So why it is so essential, or what makes it so essential to take the bidder's perspective? The map I've shown in the beginning illustrates that some countries have opened already their markets, but more are to follow. We know that the Danish government is discussing various scenarios of introducing significantly higher level of competition in the railway sector. Norway has recently created a tendering strategy. France is now opening as one of the most important and largest markets in Europe, and other countries might follow at latest after 2023. While tendering volumes will increase, resources of operators are scarce and tendering activities are costly, easily reaching bidding costs at 6 or 7 digit euro amounts. So therefore it is only logically that operator carefully assesses their costs and benefits of each tender and allocate their resources very carefully and make their choices. If regions in the future want to avoid the situations as I have described, with 1 or 2 bidders per tender, they have to fully understand the decision criteria and the logic of railway operators. A critical observation in the German market is the constant decline of margins over the last year. The individual profitability by the contract is, of course, inhomogeneous, but economically not sustainable from a general market perspective. Profit margins by contract vary between low single-digit % and more often they are not loss-making or they are even loss-making. So we have big problems with the profitability of the whole industry. We have some operators like the former incumbent Deutsche Bahn Regio with a very high return of capital employed, but this is the result of old direct awarded contract with a heritage profits. And when we have other companies like international entrants, Keolis, Transdev, and companies like German state railways, the Hessischen Landesbahn and Benix, a daughter company of a public transport company of the city of Hamburg, with very, very bad margins, with a bad economic situation, and they are still struggling. In the end, from a profitability perspective, at the moment, the incumbent is more or less profitable, and maybe 1 or 2 of the new entrants. The reason for this development is varying. There are different reasons. Of course, we have strong unions in Germany, not only for the incumbent, it's the same for private operators. We have a very competitive situation. We have something observed like winner's curse. When we have a situation that we have very small networks, very complex networks, and in the end, it's all about asset utilization, and that means rolling stock, that means maintenance facilities, that means depots, that means, in the end, people. And if I'm not able to utilize my whole organization, I will get in economic trouble, and it's the same for all operators. And then we have a very fragmented situation in the markets. So, what means for the market environment and how we can create an attractive market environment and facilitate competition? We know, and this is the standard process for tendering in Germany with the average period. This is a very complex process, and it needs a lot of time. But we are speaking in the... Oh, sorry, no, I have to go one step back. Hopefully this. This is the heart of a tendering process. These are only 120 days. In this time, you have to decide and you have to calculate all the risks. You have to calculate the right price, and you have to take all the decisions you need. And if you are a daughter company of an international company, you have to negotiate with your parent company, maybe in Italy or in France. And this is a very short period, and so this is the reason why all the operators have to allocate very carefully their resources. So there's a potential risk that the activities of the regions, and this is the problem in Germany until now, are not sufficiently coordinated, because in Germany we have these 27 authorities, and they have most of the time, the last 20 years, not managed to create a coordinated tendering calendar. Coordinating the tendering program, that is well distributing tender volumes across regions and over time, regions and time. This will help to reduce in the future to concentrations and tendering waves which market cannot cope with. It has only been recently by the German PTA Association that they have elaborated and published a long-term tendering calendar, but it's more a calendar, it's more a collection of tendering. It's not really a coordination of tendering. And we would strongly recommend to the French regions to develop this tendering calendar very early and jointly, and to coordinate tendering over the whole country. Another relevant aspect of coordination relates to standardization over the past 20 years. Over the past 20 years, the structure in Germany has resulting in a country of 27 different tendering laboratories. This is harsh, but this is not wrong. This might be very helpful to be innovative, to create new different solutions, but in the end, it would be, we have a problem that every PTA has designed their own standards, their own rail cars, their own demands for rolling stock, especially for rolling stock, but also for processes, for maintenance, for contracting, for controlling, and so on. And it would be also a recommendation to the French authorities to try to coordinate their concepts and standardize certain elements. The purpose is not leveling down, making all things equal, or how we call it in Germany, Gleichmacherei, but to find the right balance between individual solutions that bring innovation and improvement, but on the other side, standardized concepts that, for example, are were commodities, for in the best case, rolling stock, so to reduce transaction costs and create flexibility in the market, especially to create a secondary market for rolling stock. This is the best example for standardization for our fleet. The experience from abroad, and including Germany, demonstrates that especially in this area, everybody feels to need a design and specify its own rolling stock. However, from our perspective, it would be better to have something like a commodity to specify standards, maybe standards for different rolling stock suppliers. Maybe you can choose between 1, 2, or 3 different rolling stock suppliers, but a very high specification. For example, like we know from the airline industry, there's the so-called former Atlas consortia of Air France and Lufthansa. They have specified most of the interior of medium-sized ranged aircrafts. And today this is an international standard, and every airline buys the same aircraft. It's only the brand is different. This would be very useful because it would create a market for used fleet, and fleet could be used in different regions, for example, in the south and in the north, and it would increase the flexibility of maintenance facilities and depots, and would allow to increase economies of scale, and in the end, better purchasing conditions with additional positive effect. In this context, it's very important that we have in Germany developing a large number of solutions to provide fleet through pools. They help to lower entry barriers, bundle fleet, and create better purchasing conditions to overcome the gap between lifetime of a fleet and contract duration, and to ensure seamless utilization when contracting partners change. The models we face include debt service options, debt service guarantees, guarantees for reuse, and many others. Certainly, this is bursting the limits of this presentation, but as often there is no one-size-fits-it-all solution, and it would be worth further investigation of these concepts and determine which solution would be the best if best fit the needs of the French market. One key argument that has often been stated is the support pool solution is that the refinancing conditions of the government agencies are often more favorable due to the higher ratings and the lower interests. But in the end, it's the same. We know there are so many models, and we have to standardize our models, because we have again we have a situation where with different situations, with only a selection of different rolling stock models, but this selection leads to higher transaction costs, to different knowledge I need for each of these 27 public transport authorities. But we have also to talk about entry barriers. It is obvious that every railway operator has a decision logic to choose their competencies to match with the trend requirements. And here on this slide, I can show you the different requirements by PTAs. For example, at the top we have the NASA. It's not the airspace with you know, the space authority from the US. It's a PTA from the middle, from the heart of Germany, around the region of Sachsen-Anhalt, where they require from the operator the full value chain of railways, from ownership of rolling stock, maintenance, operation, and sales. And then there are, for example, other PTAs like the LNVG, the PTA of Lower Saxony and the northwestern part of Germany, they are looking only for something like an operator. Yeah? We call them in German Lohnkutscher. And this is a very narrow competence you need as a railway operator. And so with regards to this competency, it's very simple to formulate that it's a very comprehensive transfer of responsibility of a value chain can potentially, for the NASA, reduce the number of bidders. But this is, on the other side, a very theoretical thought, and in the end depends on the actual capabilities of operators. This again requires a full understanding of the potential operators, who is in the market, who has the willingness to enter the market, and their capabilities and the degree of entrepreneurial freedom they have to make it an attractive business case. And that could be different. For example, for the big French companies like Keolis and Transdev, it's a different capability they have in France as they have in the UK or as they have in Germany. In the end, and to conclude, we are sure that effective competition can be a supporting element in creating a high quality and efficient railway system. However, it is very complex, and we have to consider a large number of factors, and they have to be taken into account to ensure its effectiveness. It's about the long-haul transportation policy. It's about coordination. It's about to keep the industry together. It's not only about vertical separation, it's also to think about horizontal separation. And the experience from Germany shows that this fragmented industry with the 27 PTAs is not sufficiently coordinated right now, that these regional approaches cannot be called as an obstacle to a well-working market model. And this leads to increasing marketing costs, to increasing transaction costs, and in the end, that leads to lower bidding activities. And lower bidding activities means, from auction theory, from economic theory, lower bidding activities means higher prices, so a higher risk premium in the long run. So that means we will strongly recommend to the French authorities, to the French regions, to coordinate the approach of planning, to put yourself in the position of a railway operator, of an international railway operator, as well as in the position of local railway operators in France, and to define together, all 11 regions, a appropriate balance between entrepreneurial freedom to have enough space for further improvement, for innovation, and on the other side, to try to standardize as much as possible, to have off-the-shelf technology ready and to use them to lower costs. This leads in the end to lower entry barriers and is from our perspective, a very good starting point for all capital assets, especially for rolling stock, for depots, and for maintenance facilities. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Merci. Merci beaucoup. Mais have a seat. Alors, je voudrais juste rassurer le professeur Bergantino, because I saw you react to the picture, and the colors are right here, they are not right here. So Italy was totally well classified. Don't worry about it, because I saw you. So it's not a mistake. Alors, il n'y avait pas d'erreur sur le schéma sur l'Italie. On parle évidemment de services conventionnés et donc on parle de subventions. Il s'agit bien évidemment dès lors de s'assurer du bon usage de l'argent public et de son bénéfice social. Un bénéfice social que l'ouverture à la concurrence ne doit évidemment pas compromettre. Il s'agit des obligations de service public. Et donc, on va en parler avec Heinrich Morck. Je ne sais pas si j'ai bien prononcé votre nom. Vous pouvez venir avec moi. Vous êtes directeur des transports au sein de la DG Concurrence à la Commission européenne. Bienvenue à vous. Merci. Je vous laisse la parole.
Thank you very much for the introduction. And thank you, everybody, for the patience. You're all still here, which is in a way quite an achievement. And in the program, my name is right, but the photo is not me. It's not because you are tired. But to give a compliment to those who made the program, once in a decade it happens that they spell my name right. This time it actually spelled right, so it's not all that bad. Listen, I not only am I, difficult to fit into the program, but I think I'm also a little bit difficult to fit exactly into this panel because of the responsibilities that I am in charge of. Because what I'm in charge of, which is the enforcement of competition rules at the EU level, there we look both into competition for the market and competition in the market. So in a way, I cover the whole range of the issues, and I will talk about both aspects of competition for the market and in the market, if you allow. I don't have any slides, and the advantage of that is that I can pick up on some of the things that were said during the day, and also some of the things, by the way, that happened outside this room today. I don't know whether there is anybody here from the Dutch Competition Authority. But if there isn't, it's probably because they were busy adopting a decision against the Dutch rail incumbent. And there was a press release today about that, and I will come back to that in a minute. And what I will also do is, without being too long, but I will pick up on some of the issues that were mentioned in the course of today and which I find particularly relevant for what I do. So it is a bit of a freewheeling exercise I'm into, so please bear with me a little bit. So I come to this rail sector from the area of the perspective of competition law enforcement. And when it comes to rail, competition law enforcement has not been a particularly active area for some years. And the reason for that is that the rail sector has not been liberalized until very recently. And now with the fourth railway package, we go into what I would call more of a normalization of the rail sector compared to any other economic sector in the European economy. And that also means that the competition rules and the enforcement of those rules become more and more important. And when I talk about competition rules, what we talk about at the European level, we talk about state subsidies, so the control, if you want, of state subsidies that may distort competition. And we talk about restrictive agreements between rail operators in this case, or abuse of dominance by rail operators, which of course in the rail sector is a particularly important and relevant issue because of the incumbent's market share. Because even if you have a liberalized market in cargo for some years, the rail incumbent in cargo still in most member states have a very, very high market share. In most countries, more than 50%, sometimes going up to 80, 90%. In passengers, it will be the same. And therefore, our rules on abuse of dominance by dominant companies, and rail incumbents are dominant companies, become particularly important now that we progressively liberalize the sector. It doesn't make a lot of sense to do all the things we've done since 1991 to liberalize this sector if instead of that liberalization we have market barriers that are created by the private operators or the public operators for that matter, or that state subsidies are being granted to those companies which will not enable that competition that we all want to thrive to actually happen, and that will foreclose the market for private competitors. So it becomes more and more important for us in DG Competition and for my commissioner to focus on this sector. Now, what I like a lot about the colloque today and listening the whole day is that, of course, we cannot achieve a successful liberalization and competitive rail market alone by the competition rules. It is such a complex market, and we need all the operators and all the authorities on board in order to achieve what we want to achieve. And I think the way it has been approached by ALLOCUTION, and I would like to thank you for the invitation and organizing this, in inviting the National Competition Authority in France, and of course ALLOCUTION itself, and DG Move, my colleagues from DG Move in the Commission, and me from DG Competition, and also the academics and the operators, that is the way we need to try to address this market to make it work. I will not be able, with competition rules, to do that alone. We need to work together in order to do that. We each have our role, and it's important that we coordinate that and work together going forward. So when we talk about competition, Monsieur Pepi, he's not here anymore, he was saying that there is a tendency to diabolize the incumbents. And they're actually not so bad. So we shouldn't do that. And they have their own issues to tackle, and we should take that into account as well. I'll come back to that in a minute. But at the same time, we should not diabolize either competition rules. There is this tendency to say, whenever you talk about the dark forces of enforcement of competition rules, that then we talk about big fines. You know, fines like 2.4 billion to Google is going to happen tomorrow to a rail company, right? We talk about cartels. We talk about state aid control that liquidate the incumbent. We talk about all these very unpleasant things, and then everybody gets very concerned about it. The reality is quite different in the day-to-day enforcement of competition rules, also in the rail sector. First of all, and it was mentioned by my colleague Matthew Baldwin, we are not in the business of privatizing public rail companies. We are neutral, also when we apply competition rules on the ownership of railway companies. So we're not in that business. We're not in the business either of favoring private operators in the application of our rules. What we're in the business in is making sure that there is equal opportunities and fair opportunities, as my commissioner likes to say, for everybody who wants to offer railway services in the market. And we are, in that sense, a referee, in order to make sure that there is a level playing field, as Monsieur Pepi also referred to, in the market. Now, at the same time, what we do on a daily basis, and that's not something you read unless you're really interested in what we do in DG Competition, but on a daily basis, what we do mostly is to approve measures that support railway companies, state subsidies, that support railway companies vis-à-vis other modes of transport. So we take what we call positive, supportive decisions in order to allow rail companies to compete with other modes of transport, which otherwise they would not be able to do. The same, we approve state aid under, or we agree and accept state aid provided under public service contracts, as long as there's no overcompensation. It is something that we, under our state aid rules, find perfectly acceptable because it serves a genuine, well-justified public interest. So I say this because I think it's very important when we talk about competition law enforcement, not to ideologize it. And to say that we have a fairly balanced and flexible approach when it comes to the enforcement of the rules. And I would also like to say that what Monsieur Pepi said about the incumbents and the burdens of the past going forward, these burdens of the past in terms of pension liabilities, in terms of taxes, which are maybe disadvantaged vis-à-vis the incumbents compared to private operators, etc. All these things which we call burdens of the past, these are things that we, under our competition policy, can take into account. It's not unique for rail. We've had those issues also when we liberalized the postal sector. We had it also when we liberalized the energy sector. And we have a host of decisions of the Commission from the past in these sectors, also on competition and on state aid, because to remedy some of these burdens of the past, that will implicate the granting of state aid. And there we in the Commission, we need to be involved. But there are decisions that show that the rules are sufficiently flexible to cater for these kind of issues in order to allow the incumbent to prepare itself for competition in the market. And what I would like to say here before I'm a little bit more specific about the competition issues that we are looking into, what I would like to say here is that we actually, and it's been said before, so we don't have a lot of time. I mean, the liberalization is coming very fast, very quickly. And listening today to all the issues in France, but also elsewhere, that need to be addressed in order to prepare for that liberalization, I think it's very important that all the relevant authorities, and that includes us in the Commission, and is in DG Move and is in DG Competition, that we engage with the national authorities, be it with ALLOCUTION or the national authorities, the competition authorities, or whoever has a word to say, and prepare this. We need a certain strategy. It's largely a national competence, but I would really urge and invite also here the French authorities, once that strategy is being set more clearly out, that at an early stage we are involved in this, so that we don't come in too late and there are nasty surprises or difficulties that could have been avoided if we had been involved at an earlier stage. So that's just an invitation to do it. And it's possible to do that. Again, we've done it in other sectors. So now, one last point on Mr. Pepe, who said that we should not diabolize the rail incumbents. We don't do that. We are neutral as regards when we enforce the competition rules, whether it's state aid or anti-competitive agreements. We're neutral as regards the companies. But the point is, of course, that the rail incumbents, they're the big players. It's not the small private operators that are the big players. It's the rail incumbents. And therefore, what they do will have a real impact in the market and a distortive effect in the market. And therefore, you will see when we go forward that most of our cases and most of our issues will involve the big rail incumbents. But it's a factual thing. It's simply because they have such an important role in the market. It's not because we are punishing or chasing the rail incumbents. It's simply because they have the position in the market they have, and that generates certain duties. And then I will go to briefly to sort of some of the main issues that we're looking into. And we're doing this together with DG Move. We have a very close, and I would say a rather unique cooperation with DG Move, established not so long ago, where we work very closely together to address the issues that I now will list very briefly, because otherwise we will not be able to do it. So we have made DG Move and DG Competition in the Commission, we made a screening and we talked to all the private operators, or most of them, in the market, and we said, what are the key issues that you are confronted with in order to have access to the market? What are the problems? And the first problem is access to infrastructure. That's what they all say. Access to infrastructure in the broad sense of the word. Railway stations, ticket distribution systems, maintenance centers, what have you. And they say to us that there is not a fair and transparent and non-discriminatory access to these kind of facilities all the time. So that's the first issue. Is that an issue for ALLOCUTION or is it an issue for us? Is it an issue for the National Competition Authority? Probably for all three of us. And coming back to what the Dutch National Competition Authority adopted a decision where they imposed a fine on the national Dutch rail incumbent, one of the problems, one of the issues in that decision, one of the things that the rail incumbent did was not to give sufficient, efficient, transparent access to the railway stations and the services at the railway stations for private operators. So it's just one example, one example of the type of problems that the National Competition Authorities look into. We also look into it. We have a case for the moment which is a bit exotic in a way, but where one rail incumbent simply removed the infrastructure in order to prevent competition coming in from another member state. Our chief economist calls it the sabotage case. I don't know, but I mean, it's a fairly extreme example of not giving access to the infrastructure by a rail incumbent. It doesn't happen that often, but I mean, we even have cases like this. What rail incumbents also need to be aware of, and it's something that also in the Dutch case is an interesting case. What they also say is that if you have a vertically integrated rail company, you have to be very careful what kind of information you pass on to your operational arm. Because as an infrastructure manager, you have access to commercially sensitive information also from competitors. So in this case, they actually passed on commercially sensitive information to their operational downstream, or the downstream operator, commercially sensitive information from another competing operator in a tender. And that, of course, they consider to be an abuse of dominance. And also at our level, this could also be a case that we could build if we had such a case. So as an incumbent, you have to be careful about these things you have special duties exactly because you're dominant. And this is one of the things you cannot do. So access to the infrastructure or not granting access to certain commercially sensitive information from competitors is one of the things that we are certainly looking into. The other thing that was mentioned was access to rolling stock. And I think it was interesting what our German colleague was talking about, because clearly when you talk to the private rail operators, that's what they say, access to rolling stock is a big barrier of entry. One way to solve it is, as you suggest, is to have some sort of a harmonization of certain standards in order to create economies of scale. That's one way to do it. Another way to do it is, of course, is to create rolling stock pools. So you have non-discriminatory access to rolling stock, which is being used under a public service contract. That's another way to do it. We at the European level are very interested in trying to develop best practices in this. Also when we use EU funding for rolling stock. And I say best practices because legally speaking, for the time being, we don't have a strong legal framework to require that. So it's something we need to push for the time being. We need to push via best practices. And I think this opportunity here to exchange best practices on this is a good thing, because if you don't grant that access, if we don't find a solution to this, the competition will not really take off, I think. Now, we do also, you mentioned the secondary market for rolling stock, which is an important one, and which doesn't exist in Germany for the moment, but it actually does exist in certain segments of the market. And there, also the railing companies, they have to be careful not to breach competition rules by preventing operators, through agreements with each other, from preventing operators, private operators, to have access to secondary rolling stock. So rather than burning the secondary rolling stock, or selling it to Argentina, or doing other things via agreements that prevent private operators from getting access to the secondary rolling stock, they should actually open up that. And if they don't, there could be a competition problem as well. So they have to be careful about that. Now, I will finish very, very soon. Just on the public service contracts, because in the future, public service contracts will play a big role. It will continue to play a big role. And what we are looking into in DG Competition, and also together with DG Move, is that the scope of the public service is well defined. So it is not going beyond what is necessary in order to satisfy a particular demand or need in the market. What is important there is also that the compensation which is granted by the state under public service contract is not more than what is necessary in order to carry out the public service under the contract. If there's overcompensation, and if there's no mechanism to ensure that if there's overcompensation, that overcompensation is taken back by the state, there might be a state aid problem. And this is something that we're looking very carefully into. We do that also because the other side of that coin is the railing companies using that overcompensation to cross-subsidize competitive rail lines. So cross-subsidization is an issue. We have cases on this. We call it predatory pricing, where they dump the prices, railing companies, in some markets. You mentioned, by the way, in the Czech Republic, and where you have competition on certain lines, and where they're all loss-making. Now, the question is, and I can say this because this is out in the open now, the question is whether they're loss-making because they're commercially not viable in terms of their business model, or whether the incumbent is doing something which is infringing competition rules, predatory pricing. You know, so even if they're loss-making, it might not be an argument for saying that open access doesn't work, but it could be a sign that maybe the railing company is doing something which is not what they should do under the competition rules. So we have this overcompensation and cross-subsidization, two sides of the same coin, and we look into these issues a lot. The last thing I would like to say that we also focus on is, of course, the restructuring of railing companies. We talked about the big debt of SNCF. It's not a secret there's a big debt, but it's not only in France that we have this issue. And there is, preparing for competition, a big task ahead to address that issue and to make the rail incumbents ready for competition, to make them more efficient, to generate or establish a debt burden which is viable, and to make the operations in general more efficient. Now, That is, under our state aid rules, a very big challenge, because there will be state aid involved normally in order to do that. Otherwise, you can't achieve it. And we have a big challenge on our hands in order to see how we can manage that process under the rules that we have. And there is there's one interesting case that was adopted not so long ago concerning the Greek rail incumbent, and which shows elements of a solution to this. Elements of a solution. We're working on this, so it's not something I can say too much about right now, but it is something we are in the Commission fully aware of. We are not in the business of going in and saying that once competition is free, the rail incumbent should disappear. We are more in the business of trying to see how can we accommodate competition and private operators while ensuring that the rail incumbent is efficient in the marketplace. So these are the sort of issues that we are working with for the moment in DG Competition and together with DG Move. I have not talked so much about the regulatory framework of DG Move, but there will be other opportunities to do that. I wanted to focus a bit more on competition policy today, and I hope that was useful for everybody. Thank you very much.
Merci Henrik Mort, qui est désolé pour cette histoire de photo, mais on préfère de loin vous avoir en vrai, donc vraiment, voilà. On accueille à présent Thierry Mallet, le PDG de Transdev. Transdev, évidemment, on connaît tous, un des leaders mondiaux de la mobilité, premier acteur de l'interurbain en France, opérateur ferroviaire dans 6 pays. Alors, on souhaite bien entendu connaître votre point de vue sur cette ouverture à la concurrence des services conventionnés et bien sûr les conditions de réussite selon vous. Je vous laisse la parole.
Merci. Bonjour, je tiens à remercier d'abord l'ARAFER de nous avoir invités, de m'avoir invité aujourd'hui pour... D'abord parce que l'ARAFER a un rôle essentiel dans l'ouverture à la concurrence du marché ferroviaire français. Le fait d'avoir un régulateur qui est déjà en place est un gros avantage et je pense que c'est un modèle qui est à mettre dans d'autres pays et il nous manque un peu cruellement en Allemagne. Je vais en parler d'ailleurs tout de suite. L'Allemagne n'est pas le paradis dont on parle toujours et j'aurai l'occasion d'en parler avec vous. Je vais vous faire partager donc la vision d'un exploitant. Transdev, juste pour revenir une seconde sur Transdev, nous sommes présents dans une vingtaine de pays dans le monde, dans 5 ou 6 pays où nous sommes présents de manière plus importante. Nous sommes sur l'ensemble des différents modes de transport, que ça aille du bus, d'ailleurs du vélo, jusqu'au train en passant par le tram, le tramway ou les ferries. On a une activité train importante et c'est de celle dont je vais vous parler aujourd'hui. Un élément dans le domaine du train, nous sommes principalement présents en Allemagne où nous sommes actuellement... numéro 2 derrière la Deutsche Bahn, plus profitable que l'a montré la slide précédente qui s'arrêtait en 2014. Un gros effort a été fait par les équipes pour améliorer la profitabilité de nos activités en Allemagne. Nous sommes également présents en Suède où nous sommes numéro 3. En Suède, nous avons à la fois des trains régionaux et de l'open access. Et nous sommes également présents en Nouvelle-Zélande, qui est le petit bout de la carte là-bas, où nous exploitons les seuls réseaux qui sont sous gestion privée aussi autour des régions de Auckland et de Wellington. Alors, en Allemagne, qui va être la première partie de ma présentation, nous sommes présents aujourd'hui dans 9 Länder avec 15 grands contrats. Donc, nous sommes le deuxième acteur du marché allemand. Les contrats sont typiquement, on l'a vu tout à l'heure, des contrats qui sont entre 6 et 15 ans. C'est des contrats où parfois nous sommes amenés à prendre le risque commercial, c'est-à-dire que nous prenons le risque de la fréquentation. C'est des contrats où nous sommes parfois obligés d'acheter le rolling stock. J'y reviendrai tout à l'heure parce que c'est un élément important. D'ailleurs, les Allemands ont beaucoup progressé dans ce domaine-là, puisqu'aujourd'hui, les derniers modèles des appels d'offres, afin justement de permettre une meilleure compétition, c'est nous achetons le matériel, mais nous le vendons quasiment instantanément à la région, d'ailleurs une rolling stock, et la région s'engage à le récupérer à la fin du contrat pour pouvoir le donner au successeur, qui est un modèle extrêmement ouvert et qui permet justement au matériel d'être réutilisé sur le réseau lui-même, même si la durée du contrat, entre 7 et 10 ans, ne permet pas clairement de l'amortir. Donc il y a des modèles intéressants qui sont mis en place. Nous exploitons en Allemagne aussi bien des réseaux suburbains que des réseaux interrégionaux ou des réseaux ruraux. Alors, un petit mot sur le statut du personnel, parce qu'en Allemagne, il s'est mis en place une structure assez originale. Parce que je rappelle que l'ouverture du marché allemand remonte à 1994 et que c'est un marché qui, effectivement, s'est ouvert assez progressivement, de l'ordre de quelques pourcents par an, pour aboutir aujourd'hui à un marché qui est ouvert de l'ordre de 30 à 40% en général en Allemagne. Alors, en 1994, c'était un peu après la réunification, les autorités allemandes ont décidé d'arrêter les embauches au statut. Donc elles ont gelé le statut et elles ont mis effectivement tous les surcoûts du statut dans une structure centrale. Et elles ont mis à disposition les employés avec un coût normal, la structure centrale absorbant ce surcoût. En réalité, il y a eu extrêmement peu de transferts entre la Deutsche Bahn et les opérateurs privés pour la bonne et simple raison que le marché allemand a été en forte croissance depuis les années 1994 et que cette croissance a fait que la Deutsche Bahn a plutôt gardé l'ensemble des agents. Et aujourd'hui, sur nos opérations en Allemagne, nous avons probablement pas plus d'une quinzaine de personnes qui étaient historiquement au statut qui sont passées chez nous. La situation en France n'est probablement pas la même. On n'est pas dans un marché qui a les mêmes croissances que le marché allemand. On voit effectivement sur la période 2000-2014 une croissance à la fois des passagers et de la demande de l'ordre d'à peu près une trentaine, entre 32 et 35%. Donc un marché qui a continué de se développer, un marché qui, on le voit, est beaucoup plus compétitif que la France. On est effectivement à un coût du kilomètre en Allemagne de l'ordre de 15 €, alors qu'en France, on est à un coût du kilomètre plutôt de 23 €. Si je prends uniquement la partie hors prix du péage, hors prix des sillons, le coût en France est de l'ordre de 20 €, le coût en Allemagne est plutôt de l'ordre de 10 €. Donc on voit qu'en Allemagne, le prix du péage moyen est supérieur d'ailleurs au prix du péage en France. Alors il y a deux raisons pour ça. La première, c'est que le réseau allemand est un réseau beaucoup plus neuf que le réseau français. C'est un réseau qui a 17 ans d'âge en moyenne. La deuxième raison, et qui est une raison pas négligeable, c'est que le réseau est aujourd'hui la plus grosse source de revenus de la Deutsche Bahn. Plus de la moitié des résultats de la Deutsche Bahn viennent du réseau. Après, est-ce que c'est normal? Parce que ça peut permettre éventuellement d'être utilisé comme subside, et j'y reviendrai là-dessus, pour leurs activités de train et de mobilité. Alors, si je reviens effectivement sur les facteurs importants, et d'ailleurs nous convergeons sur les facteurs importants que nous pouvons retirer de cette expérience allemande par rapport à la concurrence, freins d'ailleurs qui sont encore présents en partie en Allemagne. Première partie, je l'ai dit, c'est le matériel roulant. Quand il y a un appel d'offres dans lequel la Deutsche Bahn est capable de réutiliser son matériel, il n'y a clairement personne qui se présente. Les appels d'offres dans lesquels vous avez le plus de candidats sont les appels d'offres dans lesquels les autorités publiques, donc les régions, les lenders, ont mis en place des systèmes de rolling stock dans lesquels généralement vous achetez le matériel, vous en êtes responsable, ou vous reprenez un matériel existant, donc vous payez un fee, c'est des consolidants, donc sur ce matériel roulant on n'est pas amené à mettre de marge, et le matériel est récupéré avec une garantie de réutilisation qui, la plupart du temps, fournie par le lender lui-même, qui va le réutiliser à la fin du contrat. Donc ça, c'est un élément extrêmement important. Et dans l'ouverture à la concurrence en France, ce point est extrêmement important. Les régions ayant quand même partiellement financé le matériel, il serait logique qu'elles puissent les récupérer à l'arrivée. La deuxième idée, c'est la planification des travaux. On en a parlé tout à l'heure, c'est l'enjeu de l'accès au réseau. Alors, en Allemagne, qui n'est pas un pays aussi idyllique qu'on le disait tout à l'heure, clairement aujourd'hui, la Deutsche Bahn favorise systématiquement les trains de l'ADB versus les trains des incumbents dans le réseau. Dès qu'il y a un problème sur le réseau, on va favoriser le train de fret ou le train à grande vitesse ou le train régional. Alors en plus, ça a des conséquences puisque nous, en tant qu'opérateurs, on est effectivement pénalisés chaque fois que nos trains sont en retard. Donc il y a un vrai problème sur l'accès au réseau qui est un problème important et je pense que la situation allemande en matière de séparation de la gestion du réseau et de la gestion effectivement de la partie et des gares et effectivement de la gestion des trains n'est pas un problème totalement résolu. D'autant plus que la Deutsche Bahn est en train de tenter une opération de recréation de la grande Deutsche Bahn. Et je vais juste donner un exemple. Quasiment tous les cadres de la Deutsche Bahn aujourd'hui ont un système de bonus qui est basé sur les profits du groupe dans son intégralité. Voilà. Donc voilà un mécanisme qui, même si vous ne passez pas l'information, incite à s'assurer que son voisin a effectivement des bons résultats. Et il y a d'autres exemples comme celui-là. Et d'ailleurs, les opérateurs sont en train de porter auprès des autorités allemandes et auprès de la Commission européenne ces sujets-là, puisque nous pensons qu'ils valent la peine d'en parler pour pouvoir avancer sur ce sujet. Alors, je vais passer sur un autre modèle qui est la Suède. Alors, la Suède est un modèle intéressant parce que c'est un modèle dans lequel le choix a été fait de distinguer totalement la partie réseau de la partie train. Donc, il y a un opérateur du réseau, il y a un opérateur de la mobilité. L'opérateur des trains, d'ailleurs, aujourd'hui, représente moins d'un quart du volume. Donc, c'est le marché aujourd'hui le plus ouvert en Europe avec le marché anglais. Puisqu'il y a encore un opérateur historique, mais qui est devenu nettement minoritaire. L'ouverture s'est passée en 92, elle s'est passée de manière progressive, et on a eu des gains importants de l'ordre de 20 à 30% en matière de coûts par rapport à l'ouverture du marché. Si je voudrais résumer dans une dernière slide les points qui me paraissent importants de notre expérience extérieure par rapport à l'ouverture du marché français. Le premier, c'est effectivement qu'on ait un cadre juridique, un régulateur et une garantie d'indépendance de la gestion de l'infrastructure. C'est effectivement le premier élément. Aujourd'hui, il est important de mettre en place le quatrième paquet ferroviaire, de compléter le quatrième paquet ferroviaire avec les conditions de cette mise en concurrence. Deux éléments très importants. Un régulateur qui permet effectivement de s'assurer que les règles du jeu sont mises en place et sont respectées. Deuxièmement, une garantie d'indépendance de l'accès à l'infrastructure. Et dans l'infrastructure, il y a bien entendu les gares, qui sont un élément essentiel de l'infrastructure. Deuxièmement, je pense que les succès, quand on regarde l'Allemagne ou quand on regarde la Suède, ont été des ouvertures progressives, quelques pourcents par an. Je ne suis pas, et je pense que personne n'est pour un grand soir, un grand bang. Il faut effectivement une ouverture progressive, d'abord parce que les opérateurs qui viendront sur le marché français n'ont pas la capacité à prendre des parts importantes, et il faut laisser aussi à l'opérateur historique la chance de lui-même se réformer, de s'améliorer. D'ailleurs, les améliorations, l'ouverture du marché allemand a permis également à l'opérateur historique, la Deutsche Bahn, de s'améliorer de manière importante. Il faut effectivement que les régions bénéficient, à l'image des Länder, de la totalité de l'autorité qui convient à une autorité de régulation de transport, une organisation de transport, et c'est essentiel qu'elle possède tout ce pouvoir. Il faut un accès équitable, je l'ai évoqué, au matériel roulant, qui est un enjeu extrêmement fort. Un enjeu également important, c'est la maintenance. La maintenance, il y a deux aspects. D'abord, quand on récupère des matériels, il faut qu'on ait de la visibilité sur la maintenance passée de ces matériels. On ne peut pas récupérer des matériels sans connaître sa maintenance passée. Donc il y a un vrai besoin de transparence, d'ailleurs au niveau des appels d'offres, sur la fréquentation des rames, sur leur utilisation et sur la maintenance historique, pour qu'on puisse faire des plans de maintenance dans les années qui viennent. Deuxième élément, il faut avoir des accès au dépôt pour pouvoir assurer au moins la maintenance de niveau 1 et 2. On peut laisser les maintenances de plus haut niveau, effectivement, à l'opérateur historique. Mais c'est un élément extrêmement important de la compétitivité. Et puis évidemment, une billettique intégrée. Il n'est pas question que les nouveaux opérateurs se trouvent notamment dans les TER avec une billettique séparée. Il faut une billettique intégrée. Et on sait très bien après répartir les recettes en fonction des différents acteurs. Ça se fait en région parisienne avec le Pass Navigo, donc ça n'a pas de complexité particulière. En conclusion, ce que je voudrais vous dire, c'est que l'ouverture du marché en Allemagne et en Suède, même si elle n'est pas totalement parfaite en Allemagne, a permis de progresser de manière importante. Le coût du kilomètre de train est la moitié du coût du kilomètre de train en France. Donc ça veut dire que pour moi, avec l'ouverture, la compétition en France, d'ailleurs le but de la compétition, ce n'est pas la compétition pour la compétition, mais c'est la compétition pour l'amélioration du réseau, pour l'amélioration du service pour la clientèle, pour l'amélioration de l'expérience passager. Eh bien cette ouverture à la concurrence, c'est quelque chose qui peut vraiment faire progresser le rail en France, au bénéfice des passagers, au bénéfice de l'opérateur historique, si on le fait bien, si on le fait également progressivement, qui permettra de refaire du rail un élément clé de la mobilité locale. La mobilité long terme, elle est assez bien traitée. Je pense que la mobilité locale ne l'est pas. Et qu'aujourd'hui, on a effectivement besoin de faire un effort dans ce domaine-là. D'ailleurs, le rail ne trouvera sa place que comme un élément global de services intermodaux, parce que le rail, il faut aussi assurer le premier et le dernier kilomètre. Et ce serait un élément important du succès du rail en France. Voilà. Merci.
Merci beaucoup. Merci Thierry Mallet. Et donc, on passe aux questions de la salle. Messieurs, mesdames, messieurs, avez-vous des questions pour notre panel ? Tu veux que je le fasse ? Ah. Monsieur.
Bonjour, mon nom est Alexander Ernert. Je suis dans le moment encore dans le département juridique de la Deutsche Bahn centrale, mais je vais déménager chez ECR pour être responsable pour la régulation de ECR. Et je voulais seulement dire une chose, parce qu'aujourd'hui, j'ai remarqué qu'il y avait plein de présentations qui s'occupaient de la Deutsche Bahn, du comportement à l'ouverture de la concurrence. Et je dois dire, il y a deux histoires à tout ça. Je ne veux pas maintenant entrer dans la discussion qui n'était pas juste, qui est juste, et des choses comme ça seulement. Je veux dire aussi l'ADB en France a le but de participer à l'ouverture du marché et que ça doit être le but principal, je pense. Et ça serait aussi bien s'il y a une un colloque comme aujourd'hui où tout le monde frappe l'ADB pour faire des bêtises en Allemagne, que vous avez aussi quelqu'un de l'ADB, de ECR, l'ADB centrale, je ne sais pas qui vous invitiez aussi pour être capable de donner le point de vue DB réel, parce que par exemple, il y a des points dans la présentation de M. Mallet qui sont en cours, premièrement, et deuxièmement, qui ne sont pas totalement justes, exacts. Par exemple, les bonus des directeurs de DBNet ne sont pas du tout liés à quelque chose, aux entretiens ou revenus de l'ADB entreprise ferroviaire. Donc, des petites choses, mais c'est mon annotation. Mais de toute façon, je pense on se bat tous pour arriver à gagner un cadre qui sert à nous tous. Merci.
Merci pour cette intervention. Est-ce que quelqu'un dans le panel souhaite réagir? Non, pas forcément. Pas. Bon. Y a-t-il une autre question, une autre intervention? Monsieur.
Oui, bonjour, Alain Sauvant, je dirige l'autorité de la qualité de service en France. Et je voudrais poser la question au panel sur l'inclusion des considérations de qualité de service dans le franchising, dans l'attribution des marchés en obligation de service public. J'ai entendu dire, par exemple, qu'à Londres, là, sur la licence de Saverne, le ministère des Transports a été intervenu pour réduire au strict minimum le nombre de conducteurs de train et que ça avait eu des conséquences négatives sur la qualité de service de cette franchise qui défraie la chronique, y compris jusqu'en France. Et donc, plus généralement, comment le processus peut prendre en compte ces questions de qualité de service pour le bien des voyageurs?
Merci pour cette question. Une réponse de Robert Catherall.
Thank you for the question. Let me take this off. Hear myself twice there. So, for the Thameslink Southern and Great Northern contract that the gentleman referred to, Southern is a part of that, and there has been some significant industrial relations disputes over part of the modernisation programme that's going on there, where we have a big transformation programme where we are delivering a whole new set of rolling stock through this new operator linked to big infrastructure improvements. And that contract did have a service quality element to it in the procurement process, large process. The government has after a long dispute, has been trying to pull all the sides together, and we had an independent person called Chris Gibb come in and try to pull both Network Rail and the train operating company together to work much more effectively to deliver better for passengers. It's the government's view that this dispute is unnecessary, but the role of the Guard on that process is changing, and we are and we need to ensure that the operator continues to implement the plan so we can get the benefits of the transformation going. And it's not my area of expertise, but hopefully that gives you a bit of an overview there. And it's an ongoing process that still needs to see the end of it. So hopefully in a couple of years' time, we'll be looking back at this to see what we could do better. I'm sure there's more we could do.
Merci. Monsieur, qui a répondu à plein de bonnes questions tout à l'heure. Je ne sais pas ce que vous avez gagné, mais vous avez certainement gagné quelque chose. Voilà, vous avez le droit de poser une autre question.
Oui, Marc Fressoz, journaliste pour Mobilicité. Je voulais poser la question à Monsieur Morc et peut-être aussi à Monsieur Mallet pour savoir s'il pensait que l'organisation du chemin de fer en France était satisfaisante. Je veux parler de la réforme, la loi de réforme qui a été votée en 2014 et qui établit 3 établissements publics. Est-ce que ça garantit une bonne concurrence? Et notamment, je vais illustrer peut-être la question par une anecdote. C'est qu'il y a quelques semaines, la Deutsche Bahn et la SNCF ont célébré les 10 ans de leur coopération dans la grande vitesse. Et Guillaume Pépi devait être présent, mais il avait un empêchement, donc il a été remplacé. Et celui qui a remplacé Guillaume Pépi, c'était Patrick Janté, le le président du réseau. Mais il était là, en fait, non pas au titre du président du réseau, mais il était là comme président adjoint du directoire SNCF. Alors, est-ce que c'est sain? Est-ce que ça permet une ouverture convenable à la concurrence ou pas? Est-ce qu'il faut changer des choses ou pas?
Il y a un bout de votre réponse dans la question. Alors, en tout cas, c'est une question un peu orientée. Très bien. Henrik Mork.
No, on the structure of SNCF, we in DG Competition, for the time being, we don't have any issues with the structure as it is. What is important, of course, is when you have a vertically integrated structure as you have, as they've chosen in France, is that the rules and separation of accounts and the transparency in financial flows between the different units, that they're satisfactory and they comply with the European rules, which is not an issue for DG Competition, but is more an issue for DG Move. But obviously, that's an important issue. The other thing is, and that refers a bit back to what I said in my intervention, is that when you have a vertically integrated company like that, and you choose that model, which is in line with the rules that we have, then you have to be very careful about conflict of interest situations. So it's like the Dutch case that I explained before, where if it is commercially sensitive information passes on from the infrastructure manager to the railway operator about competing operators in a given tender, for example, then all of a sudden there is an issue. Or if there is not a clear cost allocation, so there is internal transfer, internal subsidies going from the infrastructure manager to the railway operator, then that could also be a stated issue. But we don't, for the time being, the structure as such is not something that we in DG Competition has any issues with for the moment, and we don't have any particular concrete problems in the area of competition for the moment. But of course, there are risks when you have a structure like that.
Thierry Mallet, vous étiez interpellé aussi sur cette loi de réforme 2014.
J'ai pas sur la partie SNCF, clairement, ce qui pour l'instant n'est pas satisfaisant, c'est le positionnement de Gare et Connexion, qui ne devrait pas être dans la partie mobilité. On l'a dit tout à l'heure, c'est un élément d'infrastructure qui devrait être ailleurs dans la structure. Deuxième élément, c'est effectivement plus un élément de gouvernance entre la partie mobilité et la partie réseau. Aujourd'hui, il n'y a pas de conflit, il n'y a pas d'opérateur extérieur. Donc on ne peut pas juger des potentiels de conflit. Ce que j'évoquais tout à l'heure, par contre, en Allemagne, et j'insiste quand même, il y a du frottement. On peut en discuter plus tranquillement. Il y a quand même aujourd'hui une certaine préférence de DB Netz pour les trains de DB par rapport aux autres. On le constate tous les jours et ça entraîne des conséquences financières chez nous de pénalités. Donc c'est clair et on a du mal à avoir gain de cause auprès de DB Netz. Donc ça veut dire que nous n'avons pas effectivement, et en Allemagne nous n'avons pas d'autorité de régulation nous permettant demain de remonter à ce créneau-là. Il faut remonter au niveau européen. Donc
merci. Y a-t-il, monsieur, on vous apporte un micro. Merci pour lui.
Merci, François-Xavier Perrin, groupe RATP. Les habitués d'appel d'offres savent que il y a une grande différence entre des appels d'offres hyper spécifiés, très rigoureux, faciles à juger, et des appels d'offres dans lesquels on laisse une grande latitude aux bidders, aux opérateurs, pour proposer des initiatives. Je crois, je ne sais plus si c'est toujours le cas, mais je crois qu'en Allemagne, par exemple, il est interdit de s'écarter du cahier des charges et que toute proposition alternative rend votre offre non régulière. Et donc je voulais faire réagir le panel et demander peut-être comment est-ce qu'on voit, et c'est bien sûr, ça sera aux autorités organisatrices, donc aux régions de décider, mais comment est-ce qu'on voit le paysage français? Est-ce que c'est un paysage dans lequel on voudra, compte tenu des problèmes de sécurité qui sont évidemment importants, compte tenu des problèmes d'organisation qui sont, on le voit, complexes, est-ce qu'on voudra hyper spécifier les appels d'offres avec des opérateurs qui, je dirais, répondront de manière très très précise, ou est-ce qu'au contraire, on va permettre de laisser l'initiative à un savoir-faire que les différents opérateurs ont acquis.
Question tout à fait intéressante sur le cahier des charges. Alors, qui souhaite réagir en premier, peut-être?
Yeah, that's true.
Brockmeyer, pour l'Allemagne.
The specifications in Germany are very strict, and some of the new contracts have a little space of improvement. You can make suggestions, it's possible. But the problem is, this real problem, we have 27 different, very strict contract rules in Germany. There's one point. And what we know from experience is that in the beginning of liberalization, market liberalization, the space for maneuver, the maneuver for improvement is large. And after the PTA gains the knowledge, and so this is also the story of competition in the railway industry is also a story about the growth of PTAs. In the beginning, there are only a few people. Some of them are from the ministries, some are hired from the former incumbent, and they set up with a lot of lawyers and external consultants the first tender wave. So this is when these contracts are not very specified, and you have, as a railway company, you have many possibilities to make suggestions. You have a lot of space for improvement. And after a few years, these PTAs grow, and they have time, and they think, they have their own business development, and they add further departments for sales, for other activities, for rolling stock, and so on. And in the end, you have all important planning and management functioning for the whole value chain of the railway in these public transport authorities, especially for the big ones, in northern Germany, for example. And this leads to very, very strict rules, to very, very strict contracts. All ideas, all innovation is carried out by the PTA. And this is the reason why we call it sometimes we are going back to the era of Länderbahnen, because the time before World War I, when we had 27, we had a lot of independent states in Germany, and a lot of independent state railways. And it's the reason. So we're bumping up their overhead. And in the end, the railway operators are only operators. And it's all about cost, and you have to be the one with the lowest cost. And in the end, sometimes in Germany, there's a little tax advantage for non-incumbent operators, because it's something to do with the average trip length in Germany. And this could be the relevant advantage to win a tender or not to win a tender. It has nothing to do with to be the best company.
Alors on a Ludger Sipel qui souhaite réagir au premier rang. Vous avez la parole.
Excusez-moi, il faut que je réagisse puisque j'ai travaillé pendant des années pour les autorités organisatrices. C'est pas forcément les autorités organisatrices stupides qui aiment bien avoir plus de pouvoir et de tout vouloir faire soi-même. C'est en fait une histoire, une série d'expériences qu'on a fait, aussi que la politique a fait. Si pour un appel d'offres, on n'a pas spécifié une chose, et ça c'était un échec, que l'opérateur n'a pas répondu aux attentes, on va spécifier ça pour l'appel d'offres prochain. Et donc, c'est toute l'histoire. Et aussi, pour les appels d'offres, c'est bien aussi les opérateurs qui posent des questions à préciser les cahiers de charges. Donc, c'est souvent, il y a 500 questions à répondre, ça fait du travail, mais c'est pas parce que les autorités organisatrices veulent faire ça.
D'accord.
Merci.
On a compris. C'est pas une philosophie, mais c'est le fruit de l'expérience, en fait. Peut-être Thierry Mallet voulait réagir sur cette question des cahiers des charges hyper précis ou pas, et Robert Catter.
Alors, je vais faire une comparaison. Si je compare effectivement l'Allemagne, ce sont des appels d'offres à un tour. Vous remettez votre prix et un mois plus tard, vous avez la réponse. Vous avez éventuellement des questions et puis vous savez si vous avez gagné parce que vous êtes le moins 10 ans. Donc c'est très simple. Le système français n'est pas celui-là et je doute que ce soit celui-là. On sait très bien qu'on a le modèle de la DSP où on arrive à faire jusqu'à 10 submissions d'offres, et à chaque fois on améliore et on change. Et je pense qu'en France, on sera plutôt dans ce mécanisme-là que d'un mécanisme hyper spécifié, parce que c'est la tradition française versus la tradition allemande. Je dois dire que par ailleurs, le système allemand est aussi extrêmement confortable. Il n'est pas d'ailleurs très très loin du système qu'on a au Danemark dans les transports publics, où on a également un système extrêmement spécifié. On remet une offre. On a plus de liberté de variation que dans le ferroviaire quand on est dans le transport urbain, puisqu'on peut choisir ses véhicules, les modalités de véhicules. Et une fois qu'on a remis l'offre, après, on a quelques questions et on a le résultat terminé. On ne passe pas des semaines ou des mois et des millions d'euros à faire des offres qu'on reprend ou on reprend sa copie 10 fois. Donc il y a aussi un avantage à avoir des modèles qui ne sont pas des modèles qui coûtent une fortune et qui sont des modèles dans lesquels le client a bien défini son cahier des charges. Un des avantages quand même de la compétition, c'est que ça force le client à définir la qualité de service. Quand on est avec un opérateur historique, ce travail n'est généralement pas fait. Aujourd'hui, je ne crois pas que les régions en France, quand elles signent une convention avec la SNCF, fassent l'effort de définir la qualité de service, le niveau de service, des tas de choses qui sont attendues, et que demain, on va être obligé de définir de manière extrêmement précise dans le cas d'appel d'offres à l'extérieur.
Alors, votre voisin, Robert Catherall.
Give you a bit of a UK perspective because we've had very specified contracts, but also quite a bit more looser. And you know, I think it's getting the balance right. Really, you want to leave some room for manoeuvre so that you can encourage innovation. We've got lots of new journey opportunities out of the franchising system, but you do need to protect socially important services and ensure that it all works in totality. So, yeah, and we also look to not just award our contracts just on price. We have a good quality evaluation as part of that, and that again has tried to encourage innovation in the contracts.
Eh bien, ce sera le mot de la fin parce qu'on arrive voilà, à la fin de cette journée très riche. Et je tiens vraiment, au nom de tous, à remercier encore une fois nos participants. Voilà, je pense qu'on peut vraiment les applaudir. Voilà. Et bien sûr, merci à vous tous dans la salle d'être venus, d'avoir participé, d'avoir posé des questions très pertinentes. Et pour le mot de la fin, je laisse la parole au président de la RAFER, Bernard Roman. C'est à vous.
Oui, mesdames, messieurs, je n'aurai ni l'ambition ni la prétention de synthétiser ou de conclure les 3 tables rondes, l'intervention de la commission auquel nous avons assisté aujourd'hui. Je voudrais, tant le contenu de nos travaux a été riche et divers, mais riche, je le crois, d'informations, peut-être de questionnements nouveaux, de formulation de nouvelles questions qui permettent d'aller plus loin. Le débat que vous venez d'avoir sur les appels d'offres et la qualité des appels d'offres, ce sont des débats qui animent aujourd'hui Régions de France, qui se préparent, ces AOT, à ouvrir le marché, à rédiger des cahiers des charges alors qu'elles ne l'ont jamais fait, y compris dans la compétence de transport régional qu'elles ont aujourd'hui. Donc, je pense que lorsque nous avons, avec Anne-Yves Rande-Billon, avec les membres du collège de la RAFER, que je salue de nouveau, qui ont passé la journée sur ces bancs, imaginé ce colloque, nous souhaitions qu'il puisse être une pierre à l'édifice de la réflexion sur et de la mise en œuvre de l'ouverture de la concurrence en France. Et je pense pouvoir dire qu'il a été effectivement efficient, qu'il nous a apporté un certain nombre de regards que peut-être nous n'avions pas sur les expériences étrangères et au-delà des expériences étrangères, sur des questionnements qui se posent à tous ceux qui ouvrent le marché des transports dans notre pays. Puis je pense aussi qu'on n'a pas oublié à travers tous ces débats, et si on l'a oublié, il faut le redire, que l'objectif, ce n'est pas d'ouvrir le marché pour ouvrir le marché. Et que l'objectif qui nous est assigné, un certain nombre d'acteurs qui sommes dans cette salle, c'est de faire en sorte de donner au secteur ferroviaire, au transport ferroviaire dans notre pays, toute sa dimension, de lui permettre de progresser pour des tas de raisons qu'on a évoquées ici aujourd'hui, et de s'ouvrir quantitativement et qualitativement. Le débat qu'on vient d'avoir sur la qualité de service est essentiel. Moi, je sais que les régions réfléchissent à des critères très très fins d'objectifs en matière de qualité de service, mais aussi d'évaluation en matière de l'évolution de cette qualité de service année après année. Et je crois que c'est nouveau par rapport à ce que nous avons vécu avec l'opérateur historique. Et donc, que vous dire de plus? Peut-être 3 ou 4 éléments qu'on peut retenir de l'ensemble de ces témoignages. Le premier élément, mais je crois qu'il est fort, parce que aucun témoignage n'a contredit cette vision des choses. C'est que tous les pays européens qui ont ouvert leur marché ont su tirer de ces phases d'ouverture un renouveau de leur offre de transport, une amélioration de la qualité et une augmentation de la fréquentation. Ça, c'est un fait. Partout où cela s'est fait, on constate cette amélioration. Le deuxième constat, je l'ai évoqué ce matin, mais tout ce que nous avons entendu l'a confirmé, c'est que chaque pays a son modèle spécifique d'ouverture. Et on voit bien qu'aucun de ces modèles n'est directement transposable. Mais on voit bien aussi qu'ils fournissent des enseignements riches, la boîte à outils dont je parlais ce matin, qui peut être mobilisée notamment par les régions, les AOT régionales qui vont devoir s'atteler à la tâche de la rédaction des appels d'offres, des cahiers des charges des appels d'offres. Mais on voit bien que, on vient d'évoquer l'exemple allemand, l'exemple suédois. On a évoqué tout à l'heure à travers une question, la question de SNCF Réseau et du modèle économique et de la dette qui a été évoquée. Comment comparer le gestionnaire d'infrastructures suédois qui reçoit 90% de son budget de l'État suédois à Réseau en France qui paye chaque année 1,5 milliard de frais financiers pour tenter d'éponger sa dette et qui augmente sa dette de 3 milliards chaque année. Il n'y a aucune comparaison possible. Et donc, d'ailleurs, je vous invite, puisque c'est l'occasion de faire un peu de publicité, aller sur le site de l'ARAFER pour connaître nos travaux sur ces questions et les préconisations qu'on a eu l'occasion de faire sur ces questions. Le troisième enseignement, et je m'arrêterai à 5 pour aller vite. Le troisième enseignement, c'est que la réussite de l'ouverture à la concurrence des services implique que les autorités organisatrices soient vraiment en mesure de préciser les attentes et les objectifs. Et pour ce faire, il faut qu'il y ait un certain nombre d'éléments qui sont indispensables. L'accès à l'information. Elles doivent être en possession de toutes les informations. Et de ce point de vue-là, il y a encore du chemin à parcourir, car si elles ne sont pas capables de fournir, dans le cadre de leur appel d'offres, toutes les informations dont dispose l'opérateur historique, naturellement, on n'est pas dans le cadre d'une concurrence saine. Mais il ne leur faut pas que les informations. Il leur faut aussi pouvoir garantir l'accès au matériel roulant. Cela a été dit, le matériel roulant a été payé par les régions. Il n'y a aucune raison qu'il ne soit pas à disposition de ceux qui obtiennent les nouveaux contrats. Les conditions de sa maintenance, parce qu'il ne suffit pas d'avoir le matériel roulant, il faut aussi pouvoir le maintenir. Et puis, il faut aussi, parce qu'elles ne sont pas habituées à ça, les AOT, qu'elles puissent développer leur expertise technique, qu'elles disposent d'expertise technique. La quatrième observation, je le dis rapidement, sur le marché en open access, on se rend compte, quand on regarde ce qui se passe en Europe, qu'on est souvent sur des niches en ce qui concerne l'open access. Et je ne crois pas... je crois qu'en France, on peut aller plus loin. Mais avec des vraies questions qui se posent et qui sont quelquefois contradictoires. J'entendais tout à l'heure une question et un débat, on en parlait avec la vice-présidente. Open access ou franchise, excusez-moi. Open access ou franchise. Et puis dans le même exposé, on nous disait, mais tous ceux qui font de l'open access en Europe sont déficitaires sur l'open access quand ils sont rentrés sur les marchés. Si on les met dans des franchises pour qu'ils puissent, comme cela a été dit tout à l'heure, financer des lignes déficitaires en prenant de l'open access, ils n'iront pas. en fait, c'est une barrière psychologique et économique à l'entrée, puisqu'on leur dit, vous ne gagnez pas d'argent en ne prenant que de la grande vitesse, on va vous donner en plus à financer des lignes déficitaires. Donc, c'est des vrais débats qui se posent à nous, mais qui vont se poser à l'ensemble de l'appareil. Puis ensuite, la dernière chose, mais tout ce qui a été dit l'a confirmé, c'est que c'est un processus long. Je redis, hein, c'est pas le mythe du grand soir, c'est un processus long d'apprentissage. Les exemples qui ont été cités le montrent bien, qui permettent de progresser, qui permettent d'élargir et qui permettent d'enrichir, finalement, de capitaliser les expériences pour pouvoir améliorer toujours le service ferroviaire au bénéfice des usagers. Voilà, je voulais vous dire simplement ce qui est, à titre personnel, mais je crois à titre collectif avec les membres du Collège de l'ARAFER, notre satisfaction d'avoir pris l'initiative d'organiser ce colloque. Mais je voulais aussi remercier vraiment très, très sincèrement tous nos intervenants dans les 3 ateliers de ce matin, les membres de la DG Move et de la Commission européenne globalement qui sont venus, puisqu'il n'y a pas eu que la DG Move qui est venue, il y a aussi la DG Comp qui était là, qui est intervenue cet après-midi. Je voulais les remercier tous. Je voulais aussi avoir un petit remerciement, Monsieur le Secrétaire Général, pour vos équipes qui ont contribué à l'organisation de ce colloque, parce qu'un colloque de cette nature, ça mobilise aussi beaucoup d'énergie. Et puis, en vous remerciant, en vous donnant rendez-vous aux prochaines étapes de cette mise en œuvre de l'ouverture du marché qui commence le 3 décembre 2019, je le rappelle, et non pas en 2023 comme je l'entends quelquefois. Je vous souhaite une bonne soirée. Je vous invite à un verre de l'amitié. Merci à vous en tout cas.